friends, welcome back to my channel, or welcome for the first time. My name is Kimberly. Today I am here to do the newbie book tag. I am new to Booktube and I am so excited to be here. So I figured what better way than to just start this new endeavor than with the newbie book tag, in hopes that you all can learn a little bit more about myself. And just to introduce myself, I myself am a writer and also a book illustrator. I have illustrated a few books that are actually behind me right here. I'll just show you all some of the books that I've illustrated before we get into the questions of the newbie book tag. So I have been fortunate enough through my presence on Instagram to be found by some incredible publishers and have been asked to illustrate some amazing books. I am very much into self-help books and witchy magical books and poetry books as well. So that's kind of like the genre of where I'm at as far as like illustrating. So the first book that I was asked to illustrate, I believe this is published by Cheerview Press, and this is called Brujas, the Magic and Power of Witches of Color. This is by Lorraine Montague, and I am so incredibly humbled to have been asked to illustrate this. This is a great book. It's a collection of stories of witches of color and their backgrounds and how they got started with their own magic, as well as intertwined with the author's own story. I actually also contributed to this book, not just by illustrating, but the author did a little interview with me, and so my story is also interwoven somewhere in here. So I'm really proud of my little first newbie book that I was ever asked to illustrate. The second book that I illustrated was by one of my favorite publishers, and that is by Row House Publishing. And this is by Brittany Carmona Holt, and it's illustrated by me, and this is called Tarot for Pregnancy, a companion for radical magical birthing folks. So this is pretty much a tarot book, and it guides you through all of the cards, the major and the minor arcanas, to guide you through your pregnancy journey, or if you're trying to conceive, or if you're postpartum. So all of the illustrations on here are all illustrated by me, as well as the cover. Another book that I've illustrated is actually a self-published book, I believe. It's a collection of poetry, which if you all are familiar with my work, I am a fan of poetry. I write poetry myself. And it is called Sun-Kissed Child, Poetry in Black Life by Sierra Etes, forward by Ive Williams. I've been very fortunate enough to work with incredible clients and writers, and I'm very humbled that I got my start in illustrating books, because that is a great passion of mine, as well as writing. I am currently working on my own book that is going to be published in 2024 by Spiritbound Press. That is my publisher, and I am very excited to share more details. It's going to have amazing illustrations by me, as well as written by me, and it's going to be a sort of growth, self-help poetry book, and I am excited. But today I'm here to do the newbie book tag and share a little bit more about myself and the kind of books that I am into, because it definitely overspans just self-help and poetry books. So I hope that you learn a little bit more about me in this newbie book tag, and also for my fellow booktubers to get to know who I am. So let's get into it. So the first question is, why did you start this channel? So before we get into that question, I do want to mention that I have uploaded videos on here on YouTube, if you've noticed, ranging from a variety of things. I've done art studio vlogs because I am an illustrator, an artist. I've also done little self-help sort of videos because I am passionate about growth and self-help and healing. So I've done a combination of a variety of things, just kind of testing the waters to see what really resonates. But it wasn't until the beginning of COVID and the pandemic that I started really building a keen relationship with books again. I used to be an avid reader when I was younger, and somewhere along the way I lost contact with reading books. I got sunken into the work field and I no longer gravitated towards books. But it wasn't until the beginning of the pandemic that I started picking up books, and I found a lot of comfort in reading books. And so every time I would finish a book, I really wanted someone to talk to about the book that I just read and share ideas on what we thought about it and how we felt about it. And even though I do have readers in my family, my partner is a reader as well, like me, but of course he's into different types of books, And my sisters, I have 2 sisters as well, and they are readers as well, but they don't, I guess, read as much as I would consider myself to read. And so the purpose of starting a booktube channel or just sharing more about books here on YouTube is to build community and to talk to other fellow book lovers about our most favorite books and recommend books to one another and just get entangled in these stories. I'm sure that's the same answer to a lot of other booktubers out there who start booktube channels, and that is to build community so we can talk about our favorite books and get excited about our favorite stories and recommend stories to one another. And so that is something that I'm also looking for and hoping to find here on Booktube, which I'm sure I am. Question number 2 says, what are some fun and unique things you can bring to Booktube? I don't know if I would call this unique, but something that I am very much passionate about and I always look forward to doing is reading books by Black or Indigenous or Latin writers. I myself am an Indigenous Mexican woman, and so I always gravitate towards reading and picking up books that are by Latin writers. Something about reading stories from people that understand my perspective or have had similar encounters as my own and who write these incredible stories. I really love their imagination because it can be, in a sense, very relatable. And so I would say that my book taste is very much diverse. I definitely don't gravitate towards reading books that are that have been very much popularized by Book Talk or Bookstagram. I really love highlighting books that are underrepresented and who you don't really hear much about because other books are being highlighted, and not that those books are not worthy of being highlighted because I'm sure they're incredible stories, but I'm very much passionate about highlighting also underrepresented voices. And so that is something that I'm very passionate of doing. I love reading books by authors who are Black, Indigenous, people of color. And so I would say that that is something cool and exciting that I can bring to the table for folks who are maybe looking to read more stories like that. I'm always looking for the next book that I can read that is from someone who is Black or Indigenous because I value the stories and their time and their creativity in writing these stories. The next question is, what are you most excited for about this new channel? I would probably say that is definitely having conversations about some of our favorite books and just recommending books to one another. Like I mentioned, something that I'm so eager to create with this new direction I'm taking my channel in is building community and having friendships with fellow book lovers and just talking about books and getting entangled in these books. I love watching booktubers who do like reading sprints with other fellow booktubers, and I always find that that's so cool because I see their conversations that they're having before they do the sprints or after they do the reading sprints, and it's just always so fun to watch that conversation because you can hear it in their voice how excited they are about the current books that they're reading. And so I always said to myself, I want that. I want to be a part of that. I want to build a community like that with other fellow book lovers. So that is something that I'm very much excited and look forward to with this booktube channel. The next question is, why do you love reading? I really had to think long and hard about this question and really try and find where in my life I fell in love with reading. And I think for me, reading for me became a way to slow down. As someone who grew up in a household that was very much told like, oh, you have to work, you have to work, you have to overwork yourself, you have to break your back, and you have to work long hours in the name of success. And I grew up with that mentality. And so I would burn myself out very much while I was growing up. And even in my young adult years, I was very much like a workaholic. And it wasn't until I discovered self-help books in particular that I realized how much I loved the feeling and the idea of having a book with me that would calm my nervous system, that would regulate my breathing patterns, and just sit down and take a moment of rest just to read this book. It's just me and this book. And that was the first time where I was like, wow, I really love the feeling of reading a book, because not only am I learning something new from a book, or am I getting sucked into a beautiful storyline, I am also in this moment feeling relaxed. My anxiety eases down and I can breathe a lot more calmer. And so I would say that books have really taught me how to slow down and how to rest. And it sort of has become this ritual that I do that just helps me slow down, especially in a society that teaches us we have to do one thing after another and always be doing things, and rest is for the weak and all these horrible things. I would say that reading has shown me how to heal and how to care more for myself in an intentional way. So that's why I love reading. The next question is, what book or series got you into reading? Oh my. I would say when I was younger, I mean, I read all the Harry Potter books, and I knew right there and then that I loved fantasy books. That's like one of my favorite genres to read. But also as an adult, when I started discovering reading, I started reading a lot of self-help books as well as poetry books. Poetry books, I would say, were first before self-help books. So I started reading a lot of poetry, and I really loved just how it made me feel. Some of the first poetry books that I started reading were Sandra Cisneros' poetry books. She's one of my favorite writers, and so I started reading a lot of Sandra Cisneros, and I started reconnecting with my own voice and my own culture, and I started collecting a lot of Sandra Cisneros books. I wouldn't say that Sandra Cisneros has a whole series of a particular book, but she has multiple books. She has a whole bunch of poetry books, and so I started collecting a lot of her poetry books as well as her novels, and I just completely fell in love. I fell in love with writing. I fell in love with storytelling. I fell in love with reading. That kind of just reignited the passion and love that I had for books in general. The next question is, what questions would you ask your favorite booktubers? I've definitely been discovering a lot of what I know is going to be some of my favorite booktubers out there. And I wouldn't say that I have any questions for them. I would just say that I see you. Thank you so much for sharing your perspective on books. Thank you so much for recommending so many great books. And I am excited to grow along with you all. So thank you. The next question is, what challenges do you think starting a booktube channel will be the hardest to overcome? I would say that I am still getting comfortable with like filming. And sometimes I even forget to pick up a camera and film, especially if I'm doing sort of vlogging style reading vlogs. Sometimes I just naturally pick up a book because I just want to pick it up and I'm not even thinking about picking up a camera. And so I have to just consistently remind myself, like, okay, if I'm gonna read, maybe I should pick up my camera and just start recording little snippets of what I'm doing. Also, I am trying my hardest to continue to just feel comfortable in front of a camera. I always get very severe anxiety when I'm in front of a camera for some reason, and that is something that I'm still working on, but I also acknowledge that that's okay, and I don't want my anxiety to keep me from creating content that I'm passionate about. So if you sense a little awkwardness, that's just what you're getting into with these videos, and I hope you don't mind. The next question is, when did you start reading? I've been reading since I was a little kid. My mom used to buy a whole bunch of books for me and my siblings when we were young. She would buy us a whole bunch of Disney books, mostly only Disney, which now as an adult, I don't think that was the best thing. I wish I would have read more stories that, you know, incorporated people that look like me or people from my culture, or just more diverse books and not just the idea of princesses. But I'm also very thankful for my parents for even buying us books and introducing us to words and to just stories. Yeah, I've been reading since I was a little kid. Of course, I stopped reading when I got like my first job. And I didn't read unless it was for like school, but I picked up books again like in my 20s, and I would say I didn't fully commit until a couple years ago to actually reading more and more. So yeah, it's been on and off with reading, but I'm happy to be here. I'm happy that I've made it to this point in my life. The next question is, where do you read? I mostly read at home. I'm a very much homebody person, even though something about me or something within me has been really wanting to just take a book, go on a stroll, go read on a park. And so that's something that I'm looking forward to pushing myself to do, because I am a very much homebody person. I love being at home, and also because I love my home. I love the vibe of my home. It's a very cozy house. Me and my partner have put a lot of effort to create a very cozy home. And so we love reading at home. He's an avid reader too. So we love reading at home. We love reading in our living room. That is where we have these huge bookshelves that we just recently got. And so we love reading by our bookshelves. We tried our best to create like a little nook area where we can read and it can just feel cozy. So we love reading in our living room. That's mostly where all the reading happens. I also sometimes like to read in my office. I'm currently in my office right now. So if I'm working and I just need a break, I'll just, here where I'm sitting, I'll just pick up a book and I'll just start reading here. But for the most part, it's usually the living room. Next question is, what kind of books do you like to read? Whew, okay, I have a variety of genres that I love to read. I for sure love reading poetry books. That's never gonna go away. I love poetry. I also love reading fantasy books and folklore books. I think my collection of books has been expanding a lot more in fantasy and folklore books. I mean, I'm not mad about it. That's literally what I love to read is folklore and fantasy books for the most part. I also have been recently getting into mystery and horror gothic books. As someone who gets easily scared from watching like scary movies, but have always wanted to be that person who watches scary movies, I think reading horror gothic type of books has been the best option for me because I mean, even though I can imagine what the book is saying when I'm reading it, I'm not physically actually seeing it like how I would do in a movie, and that literally scares me. So I've been recently getting into that, especially mystery books. I've been really loving mystery books lately. So if you have any recommendations for mystery books or horror, any type of horror, particularly horror gothic books, I'm very much wanting to expand my book collection also in that genre. So comment that down below. I would love to hear your suggestions on any of those genres. The last question is, what does your book collection look like? I don't think I'm going to show a snippet of my book collection, but I will say that I have all kinds of books, and me and my partner combine our books together in our little living room library that we have. So it's a whole bunch of different types of books. We have all kinds of books. We have from fiction to nonfiction, we have fantasy, we have folklore, we have poetry, we have autobiographies, we have self-help books. I have some children's books, some graphic books. So it's a whole bunch of books, and I'm excited to see what it turns into a year from now and how that looks, because we definitely have space. We just bought like these big 3 bookshelves from IKEA, and they're huge. They like reach all the way to our ceiling, and we bought 3 of those, and those 3 we only filled to the half point each, so we still have all the bottom shelves to fill. And we did that intentionally because we know we're going to keep collecting books, and so might as well have the space already for them. So yeah, we have a whole bunch of different books. You're probably going to be seeing my little home library here and there as I continue to upload videos to my channel. So just, it'll be there. Maybe I'll do like a little tour of my library once I feel like I'm okay with how it looks. So yeah, look forward to that, and look forward to much more content from me regarding books and just vlogs and lifestyle, because I am just very much passionate about books in general, and as an illustrator and a writer myself, that is something that I want to continue to share and build community here on YouTube. So yeah, thank you so much if you made it to the end of this video. I am so excited to grow here on YouTube and to meet many of you who are on Booktube and make friends and talk about books, because that is literally something that I am yearning for so much, and I'm excited. So cheers to books, cheers to friendships, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Bye for now, friends.